Hey folks, this is Ben Yessel. How's it going? Yep, it's been just a few days since making a video. Been hard at work at some stuff. Probably gonna have a fairly tough week. Not too bad. Just I'm actually doing more. Should be doing more paraprofessional horn coaching, which is good. More work, more income is always good. I probably need some more work still in this regard. So you know, um, I still can be able to make YouTube videos, and the more I've been hearing about COPPA stuff, the more I'm like, I'm not worried about my content. Besides, it's not monetized anyway. So everything is, I think, going well. We'll see. But yeah, um, regarding priorities, I'll still be making YouTube videos, of course. It's just that, um, I'll try to make them when I can. So with this particular video, I'm going to be talking a bit more about Harry Potter and some other related subjects. There, I I know I probably mentioned something about Harry Potter in my videos in the past, um, but it might touch on Disney. You'll see where I'm going with this whole train of thought here as I talk about this stuff. So, oh, and by the way, I know Harry Potter's been out for quite some time now. I don't know exactly when the first Harry Potter movie came out, but yeah, it's been a while. So even though I'm discussing things like Disney and Harry Potter, that does not mean that I'm, of course, addressing folks younger than 12. That's not the case at all. It's just I thought I'd mention that because of all the COPPA stuff going on, right? Because plenty of adults enjoy both Disney movies and Harry Potter, which is something that everybody definitely needs to know. Very much so. It goes without saying. Just because so I at least want to mention that in case anybody's wondering. Many, many, many adults enjoy both these topics, Harry Potter and Disney. Just thought I need to mention that. Okay, doesn't need to be said. Why is Harry Potter in my mind of all the things going on right now in my life and all these? I mean, I probably, and just to be honest, I probably only mention less than 1% of what's going on in my life in my YouTube videos still, even though I am very much always myself in my YouTube videos and not somebody else, which is something that many people do on YouTube for entertainment purposes mainly, or just some people actually purposely do want to be more funny and they don't want to be showing their more of their lives, and that's fine. But I am not that way on YouTube. This is really me. It's just that you guys are probably only going to see a small smidgen of what's really going on in my life, which I do apologize for. I know I would like to be able to show you more of my life, or more of what's going on, and I hopefully get some of that in my videos. Just again, you can always send me comments and whatever. You can always communicate further, whatever, in that regard. So yeah, Harry Potter. Okay, getting back to Harry Potter here for a bit, and there's gonna be some gripes in here. Don't get me wrong, right? It's not always positive stuff here, but right off the bat, I just want to nip this in the bud. In case anybody ever asks me what I think of J.K. Rowling and the politics of that whole thing, and I know I've touched on this before. I know I have, but there was this a while back big thing about, oh gosh, Orson Scott Card. He's also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, or Mormon. He's Mormon, and Orson Scott Card is conservative. And I love Orson Scott Card's stuff. He did Ender's Game, amongst many other books, which I am more familiar with. I absolutely think the world of Orson Scott Card. I think he's just amazing. I just love him to death. He is conservative. Oh yes, he is. Oh yes. Oh yes, he is. Yeah, and so many people that are very conservative love his stuff, and many people that are very liberal, maybe not so much, but many people are probably okay with him. But there was this big thing a while back where, because J.K. Rowling started getting going on who was gay in Harry Potter and all that stuff, which is really easy to dismiss, by the way, because you're talking about fiction. And it's not real. And even if it was real, who gives a rip who's gay or not? In a way, um, for the most part, depending on who we're talking about, we don't really care too much about this subject. In a way, in a way, in another way, yes, we do. But I still think, and I'm just going to say this as a conservative. Most conservatives want people that they look up to have similar views on morality and sexuality that they do. Similar views. They don't have to be precisely the same, but actually, if they are precisely the same, that's probably even better. And some, but we like it when the president of the United States is a heterosexual, not necessarily man, but heterosexual. It could be men or women or whoever, right? But we probably are apt to picture more of a man, but the president doesn't have to be a man. Doesn't have to be a certain race or any of that stuff. It's not a big deal. But heterosexual is probably what we had more in mind. If the president is a homosexual, that's not the end of the world, right? It's okay. But it's anybody that we look up to. It's anybody that we admire. So I admire Tchaikovsky, even though Tchaikovsky was gay. That's okay. We can certainly admire and look up to gay people that are gay. That's fine. But we have to see, the thing is, we have to know that they're gay right off the bat. We have to know that they're gay because it does influence how we see a person. And it isn't always a negative thing necessarily as a conservative person. It's just that, it has everything to do with what we admire in a person. Because we're talking about Albus Dumbledore, and I love Dumbledore. Of course I do, because I love Harry Potter, right? So the way I saw Albus Dumbledore when I first started reading the Harry Potter books, and I just want to touch on all this controversial stuff before I get to the good stuff. I do apologize again. This video might be a little bit lengthy. I might have to make a part 2. But Albus Dumbledore was kind of like Gandalf, just more in a school environment. Sure, he was the big, awesome. I mean, he was the big guy. He was the main. He wasn't big physically, but he was the powerful guy. He was the Gandalf of the group. He was the leader. Aside, he's like main mentor to Harry Potter. And I saw him as the mentor, the old man, right? The wise old man. That was Albus Dumbledore. And so, in every bit of Harry Potter, from the beginning to the end, basically, I saw him, and I have always seen Gandalf as being a heterosexual. Now, technically speaking, Gandalf, I know, is not necessarily a man. He's more than a man. He's like a god of some. Tolkien had a little bit different deal with who wizards really are or were, but they were kind of more like on the level of a god almost, or he had different tiers of beings. And for the most part, we are talking about a man. We can see Gandalf as a man, but he had powers that were more godlike, and just it has to do with the whole structure of Middle Earth, and I understand that all. But yeah, I mean, anyway, aside from all that, yes, I know that the guy who played Gandalf was gay. I understand that's fine, whatever. But Albus Dumbledore was kind of the same way, and even if Albus Dumbledore was gay, that's if I was trying to revise my own train of thought there, I've always seen Albus Dumbledore then as being celibate, or at least he wasn't flaming gay, right? He wasn't obviously gay, or he definitely wasn't gay in a real showy, fruity way, right? And there's a lot of most people that are gay are probably like this, right? And even if they are fruity and whatever, that's okay. I mean, I don't know. It's whatever. It's like, it's just, a thing. It's just, like, some few of those guys in Mrs. Doubtfire, for instance, right? Or that Robin Williams movie about, anyway. So when J.K. Rowling came out and said Albus Dumbledore was gay, and all this other stuff that was either along those same lines or something that was very anti-Trump or something, well, that's a different deal, or things that were just, yeah, but mainly the Dumbledore being gay thing. And she's mentioned other things that, were liberal sounding, but also kind of elitist, about some things about immigrants in England, and everybody saying a while back, well, why don't you have all these rooms in your mansions? Why don't you house people in your rooms and see how you like that? And have these immigrants steal stuff, because they want more money or whatever. Folks, I know about all this stuff. I'm not totally ignorant to this stuff, although it would be easy for me to do that because I sometimes feel like a lot of this news is kind of just riffraffy stuff and it's tabloidy stuff. But believe me, I get it. And I understand all this stuff. I know about all this stuff. It might not follow it quite as closely as some folks, but no, I do. I do know what I'm talking about here. So, so Orson Scott Card basically kind of came out and said, "Oh gosh, are you serious, J.K. Rowling? Rowling, you're just like joining the bandwagon of like liberal, trains of thought here. You're just whatever, and like really like." And so this was kind of a big thing a while back. I never really said too much online about this. At the time, I subconsciously took Orson Scott Card's side, politically, whatever. But then at the same time, I was like, I still like Rowling's writing, and if we had a chat about it, I'd let her talk. Sure, I mean, that's not like a big thing. Like, I understand where she's coming from, but Rowling herself would never force anybody to believe anything about this anyway. She said all this stuff after the books were finished. We already formulated in our own minds who we thought these characters really were. So in my mind, and I think I'm definitely like many Potter fans, where I'm like, man, the way I saw all these characters, Hermione and Harry and Ron and Draco and Lucius and Voldemort and you name it, they all were very formulated in my mind who I thought they were. Basically, in the first or second, by the end of the second book or movie, I knew who these characters were. J.K. Rowling she was a very good author, story writer, or whatever. I thought, very good. Of course, it's not quite still Lord of the Rings. It's not quite like that. Lord of the Rings is almost Shakespearean. It's really, oh yeah. I mean, it's more scholarly, basically. I'll put it that way. And yeah, okay. So just to sum up this train of thought, um, I've never been in the J.K. Rowling political like I never bought it. Right? I never, I don't really think it's really a subject that is worthy of much discussion because whether or not you believe Dumbledore is gay is not, it doesn't really affect the story at all. It has no bearing on the story. And if I believe Dumbledore is a heterosexual or celibate or whatever, that's my right to feel that way. It's my opinion. I have my own, I had my own worldview, my own viewpoint of the stories to begin with. Well, before Rowling said anything about this, so I have the freedom to see the story and the characters how I see fit, and I allow everybody else that same right and privilege if they want to agree with Rowling about this stuff or not. That's up to them. And I think that should be the way that things should be. I don't think that Rowling would force everyone to somehow to believe this stuff. That's not really in her nature. But if she ever did, I would probably think even less of her. But I still would see the Harry Potter series in a certain limelight, a certain way. So, anyway, that all being said, and believe me, there's other things to mention here. It was definitely, at first when these books came out, I thought they were kind of like pop stuff that was just not really very interesting. It shouldn't be very interesting to me. Well, I was mistaken a little bit. They were great, but what made them great? What made these Potter books great? And I'll get into some of the stuff as they go. And again, we'll probably have to make a part two here. Well, um, you guys know that I think you've been watching some of my videos. I have a very deep love of Great Britain. It goes really deep, but it's a side of Britain that is not modern at all. It's not modern Britain, not really. It's older Britain. It's Victorian, Elizabethan, or it's medieval. It's anything before 1950. And the modern Britain that is exists right now is fine. It's just that many aspects of Britain, just like the United States, I'm less fond of. I'm not fond of modern culture. Not really in general. Not really. It's the same deal with Germany. It's the same deal. Um, I think some things are okay, but no, it's not. To me, it's no. So, and it has more to do with the values that are present in certain cultures. So, okay. Um, that being said, what I liked about one of the things I liked the most about Harry Potter is that the scenery is very beautiful in England, where they shot all of the stuff, Eton College and stuff, and other locations and things. Absolutely. Um, and the this the academic or school type culture of Britain I also like as well in general. And I love Hagrid, and I love the three personalities of Hermione and Ron and Harry. I never saw Hermione as being a feminist. I know one of the big things I talked about. Well, I've mentioned this briefly in the past. Uh, Emma Watson, right? And I realized this is a different person. There's a different person named Emily Watson who I'm not talking about. I'm talking about Emma Watson, right? I've mentioned this before in a video. Emma Watson has been has is uh yeah. I don't put a lot of stock. I don't really put a lot of stock in what she says. Really regarding feminism, and that's a different subject. And so I realized that there is kind of a culture of the combined J.K. Rowling, Emma Watson, feminist thing that a lot of girls followed a lot. I'm not into that thing. I've never really been part of that whole culture. If anything, J.K. Rowling sometimes makes more sense than Emma Watson. So, yeah, most of the time, yeah. Emma Watson is not a bad person. It's just that, well, it's what she said. It's what she has said about guys. It sounds very juvenile. That's about the extent of it, really. She just isn't. She still strikes me as being a very much no, like not no. We can always stand up for people that are supposedly oppressed. That's fine, but they have to be oppressed in the first place. And whether or not you're supposedly oppressed, it doesn't matter what gender or race you are. That doesn't matter at all. You can be oppressed, if, just you can go be going through. Anybody can be going through crud, and it's just you know. So I don't no I'm not a part of that whole assuming somebody is being oppressed because they're a woman or a minority. That's ridiculous. So I just who can take that seriously? Anyway, aside from all that, yeah, Hermione was brainy and she was fun and she was um fun in her way. The personality of Hermione and um I know a lot of people speculated about those relationships, who loves who in Harry Potter, and that was something that was a bigger deal amongst folks a bit younger than me. I think when I remember reading these books at the time, I thought that the subject was funny a little bit or interesting a little bit, but I never really got into it. And I know we're talking about Cho Chang and Luna Lovegood. And to be perfectly honest, I'm just being perfectly honest here. In terms of any girls in that book series, women, whatever, I guess we'll say girls. In terms of anybody that I viewed in any remotely amorous way at the time, um, you know, I just never got into it because really too much because well, I don't know. It's on the one hand, there were really no girls that were really to me especially attractive. Probably Cho Chang may have been the most feminine and attractive that way, but and I never really thought about it this way as well. But I realized that the girls that played these roles, we're talking about teenagers here, And at the time, I was probably in my mid 20s. So, you know, not a big deal, but I also have to say, okay, there's so many different tangents you could take here. And when you're talking about girls in a fictional, book and talking about actresses in real life movies, and you're talking about this particular subject, you know, it's just, I think you guys watching this, thinking about the subject, normally you would take this in context of, oh, we're talking about just who are the prettiest or who are the most, it's just that thing where you're talking about characters in a movie. And when you're talking about the real life people, we're all kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say confused, but we all kind of have this side to us where we have a hard time distinguishing the actual person from the role they're playing, and that's the nature of movies itself. So yeah, there's probably tangents I don't need to even get into in this regard, but for me, Cho Chang kind of did it. Well, but I mean, it was kind of like, oh yeah, her personality, whatever, is the one that I think is the most attractive. So I was like, yeah, Harry, go Harry, yeah, 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 like, and then in that kissing scene, I was like, yeah. But Cho Chang even wasn't even. I thought she certainly wasn't the epitome of attractiveness of whatever young woman, but she was up there. And Luna Lovegood, right? A pretty girl that played a very spaced out, nice but spaced out kind of character. Luna Lovegood. Hermione was Hermione and bossy and whatever. And it's okay if people think that she's still really attractive, even though yes, you can say and think it. She's a strong woman or whatever. She's not a butch woman. She's not like super athletic in that respect, but she's very brainy. And by the way, being very brainy is definitely a very attractive thing, so long as you're not bossy about just yeah. But intelligence is very attractive. Yes. Anyway, so yeah. Who else was? Oh yeah, Lavender Brown and so all these other girls that were always kind of in the background, and then there's Ron's sister. What's her name? And the funny thing is that I can't remember. This is just a little bit vague in my mind, but Ginny Weasley, right? So Harry ends up marrying Ginny Weasley. That's great. Whatever. The girl that played Ginny Weasley, her voice obviously went lower, in the later movies, considerably lower. I think the last name of Robin Wright, not Robin Wright. That's a different woman. Sorry, that's the different person, but her last name is Wright. Okay, so this red-haired woman now, anyway, so her voice got noticeably lower, and I was like, oh, wow, like, yeah. I mean, it was nice. She had a nice voice, but it deepened a fair bit more than many other ladies, I should say at the time, young women, and it's always, and there was this, that's what happens when you're teenagers. Everybody changes at different times, and like Rupert Grint went through a growth spurt, and all of a sudden was noticeably taller than Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, and they had to kind of work with what they had, and Chris Columbus and everybody had to kind of just try to work with it, and that's whatever. But so I just, as you can tell, I never really got into this whole romantic-y thing, but I never thought it was silly, overly silly. I just, I didn't treat it quite as seriously as many of the folks that were a little bit younger than me treated this subject. Believe me, many people got into this quite a bit. And again, you know reasons why. It wasn't necessarily that I was in my mid-20s at the time, and just because of that reason alone. It was because, for the most part, I wasn't really into these girls their characters so much romantically. It wasn't a big deal for me. It wasn't like I didn't see them as being especially attractive. Again, Cho Chang being Jenny Weasley, yeah, but Cho Chang was probably the prettiest of the bunch in a way. Anyway, so um, okay. Now I loved. I'll probably make a part two here in just a bit. But I really did love, I truly did love all the secret chambers and all the secret passageways and all that stuff about Harry Potter. And I love the idea of making maps about this stuff. And especially love the idea of sneaking around in Hogwarts when you're not supposed to be sneaking around and finding interesting things. And that whole thing that J.K. Rowling did is just amazing. And that's a huge part of why I got into Harry Potter more, and it was made the stories a lot more enjoyable, in my opinion. And you'd think, oh well, in fantasy, you want to have things not all. You don't want to always have secret passageways or secret doorways. And there were some things, I know everybody. This is something that everybody talks about, or has talked about in the past. And so some of what I'm saying, I'm sure, is kind of familiar territory to a lot of you guys. And I thought the time traveling thing was a little excessive, and I didn't really agree with it. And talk about plot holes and things. I don't know. It's maybe why I didn't like the third book as much, but in some respects, but I didn't always put a whole lot of stock in. I could sense what was kind of a little bit weaker that way in some, at least the third book, but I didn't. I don't know. I just didn't really feel the need to critique J.K. Rowling that much. I was willing to let things slide a little bit because there was so much going for these books in the first place. Um, and I remember playing the Harry Potter 2 video game, I think, Chamber of Secrets, and that was fun. It was very colorful. It was very, very colorful, and I just loved it. And it was challenging, somewhat. This was on my old IBM, or not IBM. This is my old PC computer, um, kind of thing back in the I don't know, mid 2000s, I think. Anyway, so you know, yeah, it was. I don't know. The thing about Harry Potter, and I'll make a part two here in just a second. The relationship that Harry had with Ron and Hermione, especially Ron, in my opinion, um, and especially Hagrid and Dumbledore, is to me very special. It really kind of makes a lot of the emotional, and the Weasleys too. The way the Weasleys were. To me, that's and the you can also throw in Sirius Black and all of basically James Potter's friends and uh, um, yeah. You know who I'm talking about. The Order of the Phoenix folks. Basically, yeah, the Order of the Phoenix. And there are always other folks that you could add in here with the good guys and Professor McGonagall and all that stuff. But yeah, it was to me the heart of the book was Harry, Ron, Hermione, Hagrid, Dumbledore, and the Weasleys. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like in the end of I don't know, was it Harry Potter 2? There's no Hogwarts without you, Hagrid, and that the John Williams music just makes me emotional every time I see that scene. It just makes me very emotional because I mean, Hagrid is a huge, huge part of the emotional world, I suppose you could say, for me, at least for me, but I think for a lot of folks, for why we like Harry Potter so much, because Hagrid is not the most skilled guy in the world. He's not the smartest guy in the world. He's not the most powerful guy in the world. He's big. You think he's very physically powerful, but he doesn't really use his strength to hurt anybody. He is so admirable. Has such an admirable personality, um, and yeah, I think that's it right there. And anyway, I'm gonna make a part two here in a sec. So stay tuned. More on Harry Potter and a little bit of Disney stuff here. In just a sec. All right, take care. Bye.